Hello, beautiful people. The peace of our Lord be with you. I'm happy to be with you for the first time this year, 2026. And to all my fans, I say Happy New Year. And I pray that the mercy of the Lord will journey with us all through the year. Now, the last time we met on this topic, these terrorists are Muslim. I made the promise that I will go ahead to show you the Islamic ideologies that are fueling this act of terrorism. And I better make good that promise as quickly as possible because ever since my last video, my junior brother has been on my neck to show him. He said I should show him just how these terrorists are Muslim. He's one of these Islamic enthusiasts that will defend Islam against anything that looks like a stain, even if it requires them to turn blind eye on naked fat, on sacred fat. And I know most of you, my fans, are like that, so I can almost hear you yelling, àwọn Mùsùlùmí ọlọ́bẹ̀ yọ̀ lélẹ́yìí. Look at him, look at the name he is bearing himself, Afa Omo Jesu. He must be an hypocrite. He should show us how these terrorists are Muslim. I implore all of you to calm down. And in the next few minutes, we'll go ahead to look into how a terrorist think. We'll go into the head of a terrorist and we'll see how they quote Islamic sources out of context. Please stay with me. It's your quintessential pursuit of peace, your one and only Afa Omo Jesu. In 2009, on Christmas Day, the world woke up to the sad news of an ambitious terrorist trying to blow up a plane that is on its way from Amsterdam to Detroit, Michigan, United States of America. Lo and behold, the would-be terrorist is a Nigerian-born Umar Farouk Abdulmutalab. That is one sad event. That is one event that shook my faith to the foundation as a younger Muslim growing up there. I just could not imagine how on earth such an handsome man with such a promising future can be talked into going into such a dangerous mission, all in the name of Islamic Jihad. And that is why when we treat this kind of topic, it is not because we are trying to while away time or because we don't have better things to do with our time, or it is because we are trying to chase clouds. No, it is actually because this is an important topic. It is a very serious topic, and I believe this kind of video is my own contribution to humanity and to the peace that we safeguard, we take as precious in southwest Nigeria, so that our kids would already have this information. They will already know how a terrorist think, and when terrorist groups come with this evil indoctrination, they are already armed to counter them with superior arguments. So I think we should just get right to it. Please permit me to quickly say this. You see, most people, when they try to make sense of Islamic terrorism, they are quick to jump into the Quran. They are quick to jump into Islamic sources to go and quote verses that obviously command violence. You see why these verses are actually relevant too, but they are not as fundamental, they are not as deep as the verses we'll be looking at today. You see, I just wonder sometimes if most of our Islamic scholars that doubt if these terrorists are Muslims or not, I just wonder if they don't actually know these verses or they are just trying to play the ostrich. I don't want to believe it is the former, that they don't know these verses. That would paint them as ignorant fellows, and I know most of them are knowledgeable. They are just trying to be economical with the truth. They are just trying to be, to manage it, to manage the situation so that people will not see Islam in a bad light. You see, what makes these verses that we'll be looking at today to be very pertinent to this topic is that it solves this confusion that arises when people try to profile terrorists. You see, when people consider the fact that these terrorists, they harm and kill their fellow Muslim the same way they kill non-Muslim, that brings some kind of confusion. They are like, if these people are actually Muslims, how come they now kill their fellow Muslim? And I think the verses that we'll be looking at today will actually solve, that confusion. Will actually, shed light on that confusion. And I wonder if our Islamic scholars in Nigeria, if they don't know this, or they are just trying to play the hostage. And I believe they know it. They are just being economical with the truth. So please, let's get right to it. Let's go to Quran chapter 5, verse 44, and the rest of the verses too in that chapter. In Quran chapter 5, verse 44, we read, we'll go all through to from verse 44 in that chapter to verse 48. Please, I want you to listen attentively. We have reviewed the Torah wherein is guidance and light. Talking about the Torah, we are talking about the Old Testament Bible. Wherein is guidance and light. The submissive prophet ruled the Jews according to it. So did the rabbis and the scholars, as they were required to protect God's book and were witnesses to it. So do not fear people, but fear me, and do not sell my revelations for a cheap price. Those who do not rule according to what God revealed are the unbelievers. I want you to underline that word. That is where these whole complications come in. Once you call yourself a believer and you do not rule according to what God has revealed in his book, you are an unbeliever according to this verse. Let's go to 45. In verse 45, and we wrote for them in it a life for a life, an eye for an eye, a nose for a nose, an ear for a ear, a tooth for a tooth, and an equal wound for a wound. That is in the Old Testament Bible. But whoever forgoes it in charity, it will serve as atonement for him. God now reiterates the same thing he said in 44 again. God is now repeating it again. Those who do not rule according to what God revealed are evildoers. Making two now. So if you read this passage, you will see how God was hammering on this issue that it is very important that we rule our society with with the laws that he has revealed. Now let's go to verse 46. In their footsteps we send Jesus, son of Mary, fulfilling the Torah, fulfilling the Old Testament that came before him, that preceded him, and we gave him the gospel, wherein is guidance and light, and confirming the Torah, confirming the Old Testament Bible that preceded him, and guidance and counsel for the righteous. Verse 47. So let the people of the gospel, now God has talked about the Jews, how they should rule their society with the book he has revealed to them, which is the Old Testament Bible. Now God is now directing this to Christians, that if you are truly Christians, so let the people of the gospel rule according to what God revealed in it. Rule according to what is revealed in your New Testament Bible. God is now emphasizing the same way he was laying emphasis on, those who do not rule according to what he has revealed. God now said it again here, that those who do not rule according to what God revealed are sinners. Can you now see? God has called those who, refuse to rule their society with God's law. He has called them three awful names now. The first one is unbelievers. The second one, he called them evildoers. And now he's calling them sinners. You now see, out of these three awful names, out of these three terrible names, the one that is most terrible there is that unbeliever. And I will tell you why. It is a very dangerous name to call anybody in Islam. I will tell you why in the course of the video. Let's quickly finish up with this passage. In verse 48, we read, and we read to you the book with the truth, and we read it to you the book with truth. Now God is now coming back to the Quran. He has talked of the Old Testament Bible. He has talked of the New Testament Bible. God is now coming home to the Quran. He's now directing it again to Muslims, confirming the scripture that preceded it. We have reviewed this book, the Quran, with the truth, confirming the scriptures that preceded it and superseding it. So judge. Can you see? So judge between them according to what God revealed, and do not follow their desires. So you see, God is equally telling us Muslims that we should judge, we should rule our society, we should judge our affairs by what he has revealed in the Quran. So you now see where the terrorists are coming from. When terrorists, see Muslims as legitimate targets, it is because they believe these Muslims have refused to rule according to what God has revealed, and by the virtues of these verses that we have enumerated, they have incurred that terrible name, unbeliever, and so they are legitimate targets for attack. So we have seen in the passages that we read just now how God lay emphasis on the importance of using the laws he has revealed in his book, to use it to judge, to rule our society. Now you will understand where the terrorists are coming from. One mantra that is very common to this terrorist group is the shout of Sharia, Sharia. They are always shouting Sharia. This is because terrorists see Muslims and non-Muslims who have submitted to this common law, to this law that is not revealed by God, to this man-made law. Terrorists see everybody that have submitted to that law as legitimate target for attack, they see them as unbelievers. So I now wonder, our Islamic scholars in Southwest Nigeria, don't they know this? I'm sure they know this. They are just trying to, deny the truth. They are just trying to deny the fact. And it is better we face the facts so that our kids will already know this instead of them hearing it elsewhere. Let us face this, bring the facts in the open. Then we now come up with superior argument to counter these terrorists. We now come up with context that can, render this their argument useless. Which makes me laugh. The recent debate about cancelling Sharia law in northern Nigeria, that would be a terrible mistake for Nigeria because you can see where all this pressure is coming from. In the north, they are always saying Sharia, Sharia. Presently, they are practicing Sharia, and there are still groups that are insisting that the Sharia that they are practicing is not Sharia enough. If I may use that word. So they want to come with a Sharia law that that will subjugate the common law that we are using instead of the Sharia law that they are using now that is under the common law. So you can see, if anybody now try to suggest that the northern Nigeria should abandon Sharia law altogether, you can see that this is an invitation to anarchy. You just want to set the whole northern region ablaze. So it is better you just leave them. Let them, continue with this their Sharia that they are practicing, and they can now, appease those groups to, convince them that this Sharia is good enough. Instead of saying you want to cancel it, by the time you say you want to cancel it, you want to set the whole country ablaze. And like I said before, out of those three terrible names that God called those who has abandoned his laws for man-made laws, out of those terrible names, the most dangerous one there that anybody can ever call you in this world, from the perspective of a Muslim that is learned, is unbeliever. You can see that God was reiterating in that verse that, okay, let us list it. Faulaika umuli kafirun. Faulaika umuli fasikun. Faulaika umuli solimun. You know why that faulaika umuli kafirun is very dangerous? It was Satan that was first pronounced the first unbeliever in the Quran. And I know my fellow Islamic scholars, they know this. When God told the angels to bow to Adam, why is lili malaikati isjudi Adamu fasajadu ila ibilisa aba wastakbara wa kana minal kafirun. That statement was first used by God on Satan himself. So you can see where the terrorists are coming from. By the time the Quran is pronouncing you faulaika umul kafirun for abandoning his laws, in the eyes of a terrorist, you are as worse as Satan. And that is why you see them. They have no moral compunction in attacking, in harming Muslims, just like they attack non-Muslims. And I think we should understand this fact. We should understand the depth of their mindset so that we would come up with superior arguments to counter it. So in the verses we have, highlighted, we see why terrorists see regime change as a very good reason why they should perpetrate act of violence. And this is the, foundation of their belief. This is the foundation of their mindset. And by the time you now read these verses in conjunction with other violent verses in the Quran, you see that they have all the motivations, all the encouragement to perpetrate their evil in their own perspective, because actually there are contents that render this their arguments useless. Okay, let us read one of those verses that can be used in conjunction with this, and before you know it, they already have all the weapons they need as per philosophy. In Quran chapter 9 verse 29 we read, let us quickly read through it. Fight those who do not believe in Allah nor in the latter day, nor do not prohibit what Allah has prohibited and his apostles have prohibited, nor follow the religion of truth out of those who have been given the book. Fight them until they pay the tax in acknowledgement of superiority, until they pay the jizya and they are in a state of subjugation. So by the time you see a terrorist, using this verse in conjunction with the other passages that we have, you see them having this quest for regime change, and they believe they have the right to perpetrate violence to any length to actually achieve that regime change and enforce a Sharia governing society. So I think we will leave it at that today. When next we come, we'll go through the two other violent portions of our book. We'll go through other Islamic sources that are very violent in nature and which terrorists quote out of context to perpetrate act of terrorism. Then in the course of the series, we will now come up with superior argument. As a believer, we'll come up with superior argument that a moderate Muslim can use to counter this, evil mindset, this violent, mindset. So until then, please live with your neighbor in love, spread love in your workplace, embrace your Christian dad, hug your Muslim mom, be good to the whole of humanity. We are blood brothers. Shalom.